I'm, I guess, a middle child, and my older siblings are my sisters. Of course, you know how that goes. The sisters will often pick on the middle child, but it's a friendly kind of thing. And my older sister, whom I'm very close with now, she used to tell me all the time that I was the adopted child in the family. But, you know, I was thinking today, when you read the collect of today's Mass, that you'll see what I mean. That actually, we are all adopted. We're adopted into God's family by baptism. The Church, as you know, this is catechism, basic catechism. The Church is divided into three classes. The Church militant, that's us. We're still struggling and fighting here on earth against the world, the flesh, and the devil. Then there are those who have reached heaven already. Their victory is secured. That is the Church triumphant. Then there's the Church suffering, these holy souls in purgatory who are still atoning for their sins. But all of us are fellow citizens with the saints and domestics of God. And all of us, we are, in the communion of saints, we are working for the same object, to be completely united with God. Now, one of the effects of the communion of saints, that is, of being adopted into God's family and taken into his house, the church, is that actually we have a claim to share in the common goods. The Catechism explained, a very good book. If you don't have it, I recommend it. It says, "Thus all the masses, the means of grace, the prayers of the church, and all the good works done by individuals are for the benefit of all of its members." Now let's apply this to the scapular. Today will be the final sermon in the series on the scapular. Those who are actually united by the scapular, the brown scapular of Carmel, have a bond which, besides making them the children of God, binds them together as special children of Our Lady. One author says that they have a bond over and above that of seeking union with God through holiness. That's the common goal of all the members of the Catholic Church. But they have also the special object of honoring Our Lady in a particular manner. They wear a common sign, the scapular, which unites them in a special manner to Mary and to one another in her. A German writer he compares the scapular bond to that of marriage. I found that to be quite interesting. He said, as long as two are united to a third, they are also united to each other. So long as the soul of a father and the soul of a mother are bound by the holy scapular to Mary, they are also united by a heavenly bond one to another, and this union is even stronger than that of marriage, because not even death can break it, but only serves to give hope that both shall find each other beyond in the bliss of heaven. A beautiful thought. Those who wear the scapular, furthermore, enjoy a special communication of benefits. Here's a couple of them. As we talked about before, the wearing of the scapular is a silent, continuous prayer. And so those who wear the scapular, we're all partners in what one author says is one mighty volume of praise to Our Lady that's going on 24/7. He says, you are no longer a single voice in the wilderness, but part of a sort of grand concert of millions of voices singing a constant praise to Mary's Son. The second benefit is this, that those who wear the scapular share in the spiritual goods of millions of saints who are already in heaven. Not only are we united by the communion of saints in the church, but in a special way to the Carmelites. Imagine, one man says, imagine the value that would derive from being bound to the little flower, whose scapular on earth was interlocked with her love for Mary, who was more a mother than a queen. He continues, but we are not united only to Saint Therese, but to all the Carmelite saints, Saint Teresa of Avila, Saint John of the Cross, the Carmelite martyrs whose feast we celebrated in July, and then especially to Saint Joseph, who is a special patron of the Carmelites. He continues that we are in a special way united to the other saints who wore the scapular, such as St. Alphonsus and St. John Bosco. Did you know that actually when their bodies were exhumed, they found that although the bodies were corrupt, at least of St. Alphonsus, the scapular, the brown scapular that they wore, was incorrupt. There are myriads of holy laymen and religious who seek together as members of Mary's scapular family the glory promised them. And with all these, each scapular wearer is a partner sharing in all spiritual goods. How consoling it will be, this priest says, or this author, to have this bond with millions of Marian souls when we are in purgatory. How much it will and does mean to us in eternal values. Speaking of purgatory, this brings us actually to the last part, and one of the most important, of the benefits of the scapular, the Sabbatine privilege. Sabbatine, that comes from the Latin sabbato, Saturday. Now, this Sabbatine privilege was not part of the original scapular promise made to St. Simon Stock. It was made later by Our Lady. And again, the one author, he wrote a lengthy book on the scapular, which I've been basing these sermons on. He says, it seems that Our Lady returned to heaven after appearing to St. Simon Stock and considered, as it were, the great favor she had just given. She saw the amazement of thousands at so small an action as wearing 2 pieces of cloth, being so favored by her with so tremendous a promise to be saved from the fires of hell. So she returned again to earth, and this time to make a promise still more astounding. The promise is this. This is Our Lady speaking. I shall descend into purgatory on the Saturday after their death, and whomsoever I shall find in purgatory, I shall free. St. Peter Damian says that Our Lady goes into purgatory on the feasts of the Assumption, Christmas, and Easter, and delivers the souls, many souls, who are there. But Our Lady, when it comes to those who observe the Sabbatine privilege and wear the scapular, she doesn't wait for these big feasts to do that. No, she will not allow them to suffer for more than a week in purgatory. That's the Sabbatine privilege. It's easily attained, but actually not many people gain it. Why is that? Well, there are only 2 requirements to gain the Sabbatine privilege. Obviously, it implies that you're wearing the scapular, but the first one is to observe chastity according to your state in life. So that's different for each state in life. And this is something you have to do anyway. So why not do it so that you can gain the Sabbatine privilege. The second requirement is the recitation of the little office of Our Lady. Well, actually that's changed sometimes to keeping the fasts of the church, along with abstinence from meat on Wednesday and Saturday. However, those things commonly are changed. Permission is given to the confessor, either inside or outside of the confessional, to substitute those works with some other pious work. But you do have to get the permission from a confessor. And usually it is just the daily recitation of the rosary. Those are the two things that you need to do to gain the Sabbatine privilege. Now, many souls, think of this, this is a small victory for Satan. Many souls are actually abandoned in purgatory these days especially because no one prays for them. How is this a victory for Satan? Well, it all goes back to Vatican II. Now, the modern church does not believe in purgatory, and therefore very few people pray for the souls in purgatory. And the result is that many millions are left there to suffer with no one to help them. But Mary comes along with her scapular and crushes him with her heel by this Sabbatine privilege. Those who are faithful to these conditions will stay in purgatory no longer than a week. And so she defeats Satan's traps. But actually there's more. One more final point. St. Alphonsus says this in the Glories of Mary. If a scapular wearer does just a little bit more than Mary requires as conditions for gaining the Sabbatine privilege, then he will never go to purgatory. He says it's that simple. If you do more, just a little, than the basic conditions, you will never go to purgatory. But this is not a matter of presumption. It all goes back to the devotion to Our Lady. Now, do you remember about 3 Sundays ago, the first in this series? Remember Elias on the Mount Carmel, and he sees that little cloud coming over the Mediterranean Sea. It's in the shape of a human foot, and that cloud represented Our Lady. And by her scapular, Our Lady crushes under her foot Satan's powers in this life and even into purgatory. So truly, we can say that it is good to be adopted sons and adopted as one of Mary's special Carmelite children. May God bless you in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Ghost.